Every battlefield has its loud heroes. The players who rush in, making a ton of noise, demanding attention, and collecting kills like it's some kind of frantic race against the clock. But every once in a while, a highly classified threat emerges who operates on a completely different frequency. They don't speak much, they certainly don't rush, they just wait. And it perfectly mirrors this chilling opening quote. Some players collect kills, less collects opportunities. So welcome to this special Intelligence Explainer. Today we're opening up a classified military dossier on one of the absolute most methodical, patient, and lethal operatives in the Call of Duty mobile battle royale landscape.
Our target today goes by the codename Les LeFay. And we aren't just looking at how an elite sniper shoots today, we are actually decoding how they think. We're going to declassify the entire combat philosophy of this high-level threat. Think of this explainer like a Special Forces combat report. We're going to analyze the psychology, the positioning, and the tactical reasoning that makes Les LeFay a literal ghost on the battlefield.
Okay, let's dive into this dossier. We have a lot of ground to cover in this threat assessment breakdown. We'll start with the Sarwik origin, move into the sniper's mindset, check out his calculated arsenal and tactical hunting grounds, and finally wrap up with the shadow unit dynamic.
First up, to truly understand the operative, we have to understand the environment that forged him. Section 1, the Sarawak origin.
Cast your mind back to 2019, right when Call of Duty Mobile was first released to the world. Our target emerged from the intensely competitive battle royale scene in Sarawak, Malaysia. Now, if you played back in 2019, you know the meta was pure chaos. Most players were frantically searching for the fastest weapons, just trying to overwhelm opponents with pure speed and aggression. But not Les. Being forged in that Sarawak competitive scene meant he had to find a unique edge, one that didn't just rely on being the loudest in the room. He completely rejected that frantic pace. He realized super early on that overextending leads to exposure, and, exposure leads to elimination. So he took a totally different path, steadily working his way up to the elite sniper status he holds today.
That path was built entirely on what analysts have identified as his three pillars: control, discipline, and precision. And these aren't just empty buzzwords. Over the years, these three principles basically became his entire combat identity. Control means always dictating the pace of the engagement, never, ever letting the enemy rush him. Discipline? That means holding fire when a lesser player would just take a risky shot, choosing instead to wait for the absolute perfect angle. And precision means that when he finally does strike, there is absolutely no need for a second bullet. It's a massive contrast to the typical fast-paced, aggressive player who just relies on spray and pray tactics.
Now, what's really interesting is the sheer visual presence of the Wolfen Raider outfit, which marks a highly active threat. The tactical gear, the heavy fur, the completely obscured face, it's brilliant. This setup is perfectly designed to blend into rugged environments. All are presenting this incredibly intimidating, almost predatory silhouette to anyone unlucky enough to catch him in their scope. It just perfectly encapsulates a player who acts as a silent hunter, always watching from the shadows before striking with devastating consequence.
But, looking the part is only half the battle. Let's move to Section 2, the sniper's mindset.
Novices and casual players will often tell you that sniping is entirely about accuracy. But listen to this carefully. Accuracy is only the final step. Long before the trigger is ever pulled, the battle has already been fought and won inside the mind of the sniper. Every single critical decision happens before the bullet ever leaves the barrel. Honestly, if you're relying only on your aim, you are already dead.
To pull off this philosophy flawlessly, Les follows a strict, completely unyielding sequence. Step 1. Decide where to stand. Positioning is literally everything. If you can see them but they can't see you, you own the engagement. Step 2. When to wait. This takes immense psychological restraint. I'm talking about letting an entire enemy squad pass by completely unbothered just because the timing isn't perfect. Step 3. When to rotate. Knowing the exact second a position is compromised and moving before the enemy can even attempt to flank. And finally, Step 4. When to disappear. Striking hard and vanishing into the terrain before retaliatory fire can even begin. This whole methodology comes straight from surviving that chaotic Sarawak competitive scene, because to Les, survival creates opportunity, and opportunity creates victory.
So what physical tools actually execute this philosophy? Let's open up Section 3, a calculated arsenal.
Out of hundreds of possible weapon configurations in the game, if you dig into his loadout history, one weapon stands alone as his true signature, the DLQ-33 Zealot. This weapon demands an absolute, uncompromising standard. It's powerful, it's incredibly reliable, but most importantly, it is unforgiving. If you miss your shot with a bolt-action rifle like the DLQ, that rechamber time leaves you completely, utterly vulnerable. You have to be perfect.
So the crucial point is that for Les, the DLQ isn't just a sniper rifle. It's a literal extension of his patience. It is the ultimate countermeasure to the chaotic run-and-gun mindset he learned to defeat early on. For him, one bullet means one opportunity and one decision. He doesn't take warning shots. He doesn't provide suppressive fire. Every single pull of the trigger is a deeply calculated execution designed to end an engagement instantly.
Of course, no operative survives a battle royale without a solid contingency plan. When combat inevitably gets too close for comfort, or a tricky rotation forces him into tight quarters, Les relies on the AK-117 Lava Remix. This is his calculated backup. The AK-117 offers a really high rate of fire and excellent control, which makes it the perfect complementary tool to handle that sudden, unpredictable chaos that a heavy sniper rifle just can't address. It gives him the firepower to fight his way back out to an advantageous range.
And to facilitate those rapid repositioning maneuvers, our subject relies heavily on the Airborne Operator class. This is such a vital piece of the puzzle. The Airborne class allows Les to launch himself super high into the air, completely bypassing traditional choke points and ground-level threats. He uses it strictly to gain the high ground, dropping onto totally inaccessible rooftops or towering cliff faces. This gives him absolute visual dominance over the battlefield before his enemies even realize he's relocated.
All right, we know his mindset, we know his gear. Now where exactly does he hunt? Section 4, Tactical Hunting Grounds.
Every top-tier sniper has a preferred environment, and for Les LaFay, intelligence confirms his absolute favorite hunting grounds are the sprawling maps of Isolated and Blackout. Why? Because these maps feature incredibly wide landscapes, massive mountains, and super open sightlines. It is quite literally the perfect terrain for long-range elimination. In his hands, every single rolling hill becomes an observation post. Every isolated rooftop becomes an impenetrable sniper nest. He basically uses the sheer massive scale of these maps as his primary defense, keeping enemies at a distance where they physically cannot effectively return fire.
But even a silent hunter rarely wins a war completely alone. Let's look at Section 5, the Shadow Unit dynamic. You see, Shadow Unit isn't defined by public rankings. It's defined by implicit trust, and that trust is showcased best in his primary partnership. You have Les LaFay, patient, silent, always commanding long-range control. But then you have a name that appears in his combat logs time and time again. IM Saroma. IM is the absolute polar opposite of Les. IM thrives on pure chaos, utilizing hoverbike mayhem and constant distraction. We're talking loud, fast, and wildly unpredictable. When the mission demands teamwork, these wildly different playstyles force enemy squads to completely split their tension.
And this brilliantly illustrates how one distracts while the other eliminates. It's essentially the ultimate good cop, bad cop routine, though actually, silent cop, explosive cop is probably way more accurate here. Where IM fully embraces the chaos of those early competitive days, Les acts as the patient counterbalance. Where Les observes, IM creates absolute pandemonium. One distracts the enemy, pulling all their fire and attention, while the other sits incredibly comfortably 200 meters away and systematically eliminates them one by one. They have vastly different styles, sure, but they share exactly one objective: victory.
Which brings us to the commander's assessment. The core philosophy that makes Les such a massive threat can be summed up like this. Victory isn't about speed or aggression. It's about smart decisions and perfect timing. Les is for sure not the fastest player on the battlefield, but he is the most dangerous because he is the player who makes the fewest mistakes. Legends in this arena aren't remembered because they fired the most bullets. They are remembered because every single bullet they fired actually meant something. Now, we have only just scratched the surface of this operative's capabilities today. There is far more data to decrypt. Our next explainer will open up the next classified file, the arsenal of Les LaFay. That's where we'll break down the exact granular attachments and tactical tuning he uses. Just a heads up, alpha clearance will be required for that briefing. Before we end this transmission and close the dossier for today, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to analyze in your own gameplay. When you drop into the battlefield, are you playing for speed or are you playing for perfect timing? Just remember, survival creates opportunity, and opportunity creates victory. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the shadows, and we'll see you in the next briefing.